Hey there, Ruth Haven Grounds family. I've been thinking a lot lately about how we gardeners are always chasing the next big thing. We pour our hearts into growing those beautiful heirloom tomatoes and picture-perfect zucchinis, but what if I told you there are some incredibly profitable crops flying completely under the radar? I'm talking about plants that could potentially turn your backyard garden or small farm into a serious money-making operation. Today I want to share something that's been absolutely fascinating me. 5 crops that savvy farmers are quietly growing while the rest of us are still debating between determinate and indeterminate tomatoes. These aren't your typical cash crops, and that's exactly why they're so lucrative. So grab your favorite gardening beverage, settle in, and let's explore these hidden gems together. Gourmet mushrooms, the underground gold mine. Listen, I'll be honest with you. When I first heard about farmers making 6 figures growing mushrooms in their basements, I thought it was one of those too-good-to-be-true internet schemes. But here's the thing. Specialty mushrooms like oyster, shiitake, lion's mane, and maitake are commanding premium prices that would make your jaw drop. We're talking about crops that can sell for anywhere from $15 to $30 per pound at farmers markets, and restaurants are practically begging for consistent suppliers. The beauty of mushroom cultivation is that you don't need acres of land. A small climate-controlled space, whether it's a basement, garage, or even a closet, can produce hundreds of pounds of gourmet mushrooms every month. What makes this especially appealing for us gardeners is the relatively quick turnaround. Unlike waiting all season for those tomatoes to ripen, oyster mushrooms can go from inoculation to harvest in just 4 to 6 weeks. You're essentially creating multiple revenue streams throughout the year rather than relying on one growing season. The startup costs are surprisingly reasonable too. You can begin with a few $100s for substrate materials, spawn, and basic environmental controls. Many successful mushroom growers started exactly where you are now, experimenting with a few logs or growing bags in their garage before scaling up. The learning curve is real, don't get me wrong, but once you dial in your environment and understand the process, mushrooms practically grow themselves. Microgreens, small leaves, big profits. Now let me tell you about microgreens because this one really changed my perspective on what's possible in a small space. These tiny nutrient-dense greens are harvested just 7 to 14 days after germination, and high-end restaurants and health-conscious consumers absolutely cannot get enough of them. Here's what blew my mind. You can potentially generate $500 to $1,000 per month from just a 10 by 10 foot growing area. We're talking about crops like sunflower shoots, pea shoots, radish microgreens, and specialty varieties that chefs are willing to pay premium prices for because they add that pop of flavor and visual appeal to their dishes. The reason microgreens are so profitable comes down to simple mathematics. You're harvesting multiple crops per month from the same space, you can grow them year-round indoors under LED lights, and the markup is substantial. A single tray that costs you maybe $3 to $5 in seeds and supplies can easily sell for $25 to $40, depending on your market and variety. What I love most about microgreens for the Ruth Haven Grounds community is that they're perfect for testing the waters of commercial growing without overwhelming yourself. You can start with a few trays on a shelf, learn what grows well and what your local market wants, and gradually expand. Plus, the physical demands are minimal compared to traditional farming, making this accessible whether you're 25 or 75. Okay, stay with me here because this one sounds wild, but saffron cultivation is one of those rare opportunities where small-scale growers actually have an advantage over industrial agriculture. Saffron sells for thousands of dollars per pound, sometimes reaching $15,000 or more for the highest quality threads. Before you think this is impossible, let me break down why this works. Saffron comes from the crocus sativus flower, and each flower produces just 3 tiny crimson stigmas that become the saffron threads we know. Yes, it's labor-intensive because you're hand-harvesting those delicate stigmas, but here's the beautiful part. You can grow saffron in relatively small spaces and still generate significant income. A quarter-acre plot can potentially yield 5 to 10 pounds of saffron annually, which translates to anywhere from $30,000 to over $100,000 depending on your quality and market connections. Even a dedicated backyard plot of a few hundred square feet could produce enough saffron to create a nice supplemental income stream. The crocuses are actually quite easy to grow once established. They prefer well-drained soil, need minimal water, and are surprisingly cold-hardy, making them suitable for many growing zones. The initial investment in corms can be a few $1,000s, but these multiply naturally, expanding your crop each year without additional purchases. The harvest window is short, just a few weeks in autumn, which means you're not tied to this crop year-round. Many saffron growers I've connected with treat it as their premium crop, while growing other things throughout the rest of the year. The key is building relationships with high-end restaurants, specialty food stores, and developing a direct-to-consumer presence where you can share your story and command top dollar. Now, I'm going to introduce you to what I call the plant it and profit crop American ginseng. This one requires patience, my friends, because ginseng roots take 5 to 7 years to reach marketable maturity. But here's why patient growers are quietly becoming wealthy. Mature ginseng roots sell for $600 to $800 per pound of dried root, sometimes even more, for wild simulated ginseng. The genius of ginseng is that it grows in the understory of hardwood forests, meaning you can cultivate it in wooded areas that aren't suitable for traditional crops. If you have even a small woodlot or access to forested land, you're sitting on potential gold. A half-acre of forest can accommodate around 2,000 ginseng plants, which at maturity could be worth $50,000 or more. What makes this especially interesting for long-term planning is that ginseng is relatively hands-off once established. You're planting seeds or rootlets under the forest canopy, perhaps installing some deer fencing, and then mainly monitoring and maintaining the plot annually. The plants do their thing naturally, and you're essentially letting time do the heavy lifting. Wild simulated ginseng, which is grown to mimic wild conditions, commands the highest prices in Asian markets where ginseng has been valued for centuries for its medicinal properties. The slower the growth and the more natural the growing conditions, the more valuable your roots become. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme, but it's absolutely a get-rich-eventually plan that requires minimal ongoing labor. Let me share something that surprised me. Lavender farming is experiencing a renaissance, and small-scale growers are discovering just how many revenue streams one crop can provide. We're not just talking about selling bunches of dried lavender here, though that alone can be profitable. Smart lavender growers are creating value-added products that multiply their profits several times over. Fresh lavender bunches sell well at farmers markets, typically fetching $6 to $10 per bunch. Dried lavender maintains strong demand from crafters, decorators, and aromatherapy enthusiasts. But the real money comes from lavender essential oil, culinary lavender, lavender sachets, soaps, lotions, and other products that transform your crop from a raw agricultural product into a premium lifestyle brand. A well-established acre of lavender can produce 1,000 to 1,500 pounds of dried buds annually. If you're selling wholesale, you might get $10 to $15 per pound, but if you're creating value-added products and selling directly to consumers, that same harvest could generate $50,000 or more in revenue. Lavender is remarkably low maintenance once established, preferring lean soil and minimal water, which actually makes it thrive in conditions where other crops struggle. It's perennial, meaning you plant once and harvest for 10 to 15 years. The plants are also gorgeous.